Following breaking news out of Israel right now, Hamas, or the Israel-Hamas war, rather, a spokesperson for the Israeli Defense Forces saying that it's expanding its ground operations in Gaza tonight. I want to bring in our foreign correspondent, James Longman, there in Tel Aviv, along with our senior Pentagon reporter, Louis Martinez. So, Louis, let's start with you. What are you hearing there from the Pentagon?
Well, Kara, what we are hearing is what that IDF spokesman has essentially said, which is that Israel is expanding its ground operations in Gaza. The spokesman said that they had notified the families of the 229 hostages being held by Hamas and other groups inside of Gaza. And they said that essentially we are not going to succumb to Hamas's online psychological war. They said if there was a deal, we would alert families first, and thus far there is no alert from us. And so that is essentially the latest information. Throughout the afternoon now, we have been seeing these very large explosions, part of an aerial campaign that is underway near Gaza City. Our viewers have been seeing it now for the last hour or so. And of course, that raises questions. So we've been speaking to officials here at the Pentagon who are essentially telling us they are monitoring the situation. They are aware of what the same images that we are viewing and are trying to establish exactly what is going on. But from this statement that we have from the IDF spokesman, essentially saying that we are expanding the ground activity of the Israeli Defense Forces this evening.
So, Louis, they're being very careful with the wording here, expanding ground operations. That's different from a massive ground incursion, right? I mean, what do you read between the lines? What are you seeing here or hearing?
Sure, Kara. So one of the things that we have been preparing now for weeks now, this is weeks that this has been ongoing, is that there would be a massive ground offensive by the Israelis. Of course, no one here at the Pentagon, and especially us journalists, are not privy to what the Israelis' ground offensive plan is actually going to look like. What we have seen over the last couple of nights is that there have been these raids that have been undertaken by ground forces into parts of Gaza. Some of them have been snatch and grab missions. We have seen some Israeli armor move across the border from Israel into Gaza, but they've not gone deep. But they have returned back to Israeli territory. So potentially when you see this comment that they are expanding their ground operations, potentially it indicates that it is something beyond what we have seen over the last couple of nights. But again, with the idea of a ground offensive, we really are not sure what kind of operation that would look like. And as American officials have said, this is an Israeli operation. They're the ones who know best how they're going to undertake it.
So then, James, what are your sources telling you?
Well, Kira, just before we came on air, actually, we heard from a Palestinian communications company, Jawal, which said that they have lost all ability to connect Gaza with the outside world. They said that all internet and phone lines have been cut because of ongoing Israeli bombardment. And then we got a statement from the Palestinian Red Crescent saying that they have completely lost contact with the operations room in the Gaza Strip and all our teams operating there due to the Israeli authorities cutting off all landline, cellular and internet communications. Again, that is from the Palestinian Red Crescent. We had this from the telecommunications company. The Israelis themselves are not giving us much information as to what exactly their operation looks like, but anecdotally, if you cut off a place from all communication, it looks like some larger military activity is taking place, but as Luis says, not necessarily an incursion, but an operation. Earlier, just actually in the last hour or so, our chief national correspondent, Matt Gutman, spoke to an IDF spokesperson about this ground operation.
We are conducting our sweep and clear activities in order to create better conditions for optimal operational conditions on the ground. So we are seeking out anti-tank capabilities, we are destroying observation posts, and we are engaging the terrorists where we find them on the front lines or in the peripheral of the Gaza Strip.
So this
inside,
there are Israeli troops right now in the Gaza Strip?
For several days we've been conducting these activities. I won't speak specifically now for operational concerns.
But it seems like you're describing them doing something that's more active than what we've been hearing about, at least.
We've, as the General said, increasing our activities, taking the war to Hamas. We intend on dismantling their capabilities, destroying their government, and making sure they can never use the Gaza Strip as a staging ground against our people again.
So that's Peter Lerner, an IDF spokesperson, speaking to Chief National Correspondent Matt Gutman. I should say we've had an uptick of activity here in Tel Aviv that today had to go into the shelter a number of times because of incoming rockets. They felt very, very close. And at the same time, we've been hearing possible sort of conversations online and through various sources about the idea of a possible ceasefire in return for the hostages. This is stuff that we cannot confirm, but we hear anecdotally. Sources in Qatar, who of course are an intermediary for the Israelis and the Americans on this, with Hamas, saying that there was an idea that there might be an exchange of hostages, but the ceasefire was a condition for that. And in response, we've had this statement from the IDF saying, "Do not succumb to Hamas online psychological war. If there was a deal, we would alert families, and thus far there is no alert from us. Don't succumb to online chatter." So just when we thought the possibility of a ceasefire might be around the corner, was there one, wasn't there one? Now we're hearing that now the Israeli Defense Forces are mounting this expanded operation. What that looks like, of course, what it looks like for the people of Gaza, who now, as I say, don't have any means of communicating with the outside world, and already so many have died, well over 7,000 now, according to Hamas health authorities, and so many buildings destroyed. The United Nations put out a statistic saying over 40% of buildings now in Gaza are unlivable. What that will mean when the bombardment stop but a ground incursion begins, with a lot of warnings from international rights groups that the death toll could rise even further. But thus far, we don't know that it's an incursion. Like Louise said, like we've been hearing repeatedly, this is an expanded ground operation. We'll have to wait and see what that really means. Kira?
So then, James and Louis, I want to ask you both this question, and I'll stay with you, James, as we're watching this film coming in from the IDF, from their cameras here of these strikes. But James, let me ask you just about the hostages and the fact that what we are getting here from the Pentagon, the 229 hostage families have been notified about this expanding ground activity. And James, I'll start with you, and then Louis, I want you to weigh in on this. They've alerted the families. The question is, what have they told the families? Have they told the families, we've done as much as we can, we've got to go in. Our goal is to dismantle Hamas. We may lose some of these hostages. We may be able to find some of these hostages. I mean, do we have any idea how transparent they've been with these families? James, let's start with you, and then Louis, whatever you can add.
Well, as soon as we come off air, we will be calling the families that we've been spending time with to find out just that. I should say that their complaint has been that there hasn't been much transparency about the situation. Many of them left in the dark for days, not even knowing if their loved ones had been taken hostage or indeed killed in that terror attack. And so they have been putting on the pressure to this government to try to prioritise their loved ones and try to prioritise bringing the hostages home. It didn't feel that that was the priority the day after the attack. It was immediate that, the sense that Israel was going to respond militarily in Gaza in some respect. But slowly and surely, over the last 3 weeks, the hostage families have been making their voices heard louder and louder and louder, saying both to the Israeli government and to the world, bring our loved ones back. And we thought possibly we were on the edge of something where the Israelis had a breakthrough through the Qataris, like I said, with Hamas, that there might have been some kind of larger release. That isn't, and I should stress, off the table at this point, because we don't know what this expanded military operation looks like. But these families have not had a lot of information from the government going over the last 3 weeks. They're upset, many of them, with how this thing has been handled. They've set up their hostage family rescue forum, which is a pressure group essentially on the government to try to get them to focus more on them. And so we'll have to see what they in fact have been told in greater detail. Kira?
Well, I'll tell you what, we'll take it to Louis, and James, if you want, I know you're in contact with these families. If you want to text them, make a call, let me know if you can get something. Yeah, do it right now. Louis, while we wait to see if James can hear back, because look, this is the beauty of live television. We can keep rolling and continue the conversation. Yes, go ahead, James.
Call here and just see if we can get something, but you continue. I'm going to try and get a phone call going to one of the families.
All right, let us know. Jump back in. So, Louis, do you have any idea what these families were told specifically, that, hey, look, there could be loss of life here, and that means possibly your family members?
Well, Kira, I don't want to speculate because essentially, remember, we are a step removed from exactly what is going on in Israel. Here at the Pentagon, when we speak to U.S. officials, they have, let's say, a broad idea of what is actually what is going on the ground inside of Israel at any given time, because again, they're being briefed by the Israelis. But they, when it comes to like very minute details like this one particularly, I'm not sure that it's the Pentagon that it's involved. It could be part of the broader national security situation, right? And one of the things that we constantly hear from senior U.S. officials is the importance of Hamas releasing those hostages. That is the message that I know carries across the U.S. government. But in terms of the specifics, I wouldn't be in a position to speculate on that right now.
All right. Thanks so much to you, Louis. And I know James is working the phones. We'll get back to him as soon as we get some intel from the hostage families.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.